The laughter at the table didn't match the wine. It was too sharp, too synchronized, like they'd been practicing. We were at a long oak table in a candle-lit bistro, celebrating Mark's birthday. 12 of us squeezed shoulder to shoulder. The smell of rosemary chicken drifted up from the plates. My wife sat to my left, angled toward the man across from us, someone I'd never met. Tall, neat beard, the kind of confidence that doesn't check the time. Her laugh came again, lighter this time, but when she reached across to pass him the wine, her fingers lingered, long enough for me to notice, long enough for his eyes to stay on her after he'd taken the bottle. I turned back to my plate, but the rest of the table had already caught the moment. Mark's girlfriend dropped her gaze to her bread. The man's date sipped her drink without looking at either of them. That's when I saw it, the jacket, draped over the back of my wife's chair. Black leather worn soft, one cuff frayed where the stitching had given up. I'd seen it before. Not tonight, not even this week. Months ago in a photo she'd shown me from happy hour with coworkers. She said it belonged to someone's boyfriend. The waitress came by asking about dessert. My wife didn't hear her, she was busy leaning closer to him, whispering something that made his mouth twitch into a grin. I cut in, my voice flat. "You planning on keeping that jacket for winter?" She blinked at me, caught mid-smile. "What jacket?" "That one." I tilted my head toward the chair back. "Looks like it's following you around." Her smile didn't fade, but it tightened. "It's not mine, just borrowed for the night. Can we not do this here?" She took a sip of wine, eyes sliding back to him before the glass was down. I nodded once and said nothing else. I could feel the shift. The conversation at our end of the table turned cautious, people measuring their words. I kept my hands folded in my lap and let her reclaim her place in the group, watching how quickly she could. When the bill came, she offered to split it for both of us before I could reach for my wallet. Small thing, but unusual. She liked me to handle it. Later in the car, the streetlights flashed over her face in intervals. "You were quiet tonight," she said, not accusatory, just fishing. "It was Mark's night," I said. "Didn't want to step on it." She laughed once, short. "You make it sound like I was." I didn't say that. My eyes stayed on the road. We pulled into the driveway. She reached for the door handle, then hesitated. "You're not mad, are you?" "About dinner?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. "Yeah, or anything." "No," I said, "not mad." That seemed to be enough for her. She went inside without looking back. I stayed in the car, scrolling through Instagram. Mark's girlfriend had already posted photos from the night, the cake, the toast, the table. In one shot, the jacket was perfectly visible, the frayed cuff catching the candlelight. Curious, I clicked through her profile. 2 weeks ago, she'd posted another group photo from a different bar, and there it was again. Same jacket, same cuff, different man wearing it. I zoomed in until the pixels blurred, my thumb hovering over the screen. The man wasn't anyone I recognized, but the way his arm was around my wife's waist in that picture told me I didn't need to. I took a screenshot, the click of the phone camera loud in the stillness of the car. The photo froze there on my screen, cuff, candlelight, and her smile angled toward him. I didn't go inside right away. I just sat there, looking at the image, wondering if she'd remember which story she told me the first time that jacket appeared. 3 nights after the dinner, she announced the trip like it was an afterthought. I was rinsing a glass at the sink when she leaned against the doorway, thumbs dancing on her phone. "Oh," she said, eyes still down. "I'm going to Chicago next weekend. Girls' trip, college friends." She didn't check my reaction. That was the first tell. Normally she'd over-explain where, when, who. Now it was dropped like a card she didn't care if I saw. "Which friends?" I asked. The glass in my hand still had a faint trace of red wine. "Megan and well, mostly Megan." She paused. "A couple of others." I nodded, letting her fill the silence. She didn't. Later that night, I checked Megan's Instagram. Her last post was from Heathrow Airport, tagged Lisbon. She was halfway across the Atlantic when my wife claimed she'd be in Chicago with her. The next day she started the public warm-up. Group selfies from work labeled counting down the days. A reposted meme about needing girl time. Comments from coworkers piling in with heart emojis. On Friday morning, she rolled her suitcase into the living room, kissed me quickly, and was gone before the coffee finished brewing. By noon, the first girls' trip post appeared, a boomerang of cocktails clinking in front of a neon sign. The caption, "First Night Energy." I noticed the composition before the drinks. The hands holding the glasses, one set had nails I knew too well. Across the table was a man's hand, watch half hidden under the cuff. And at the edge of the frame, slung over the back of a chair, was the same black leather jacket. The frayed cuff was angled toward the camera. I didn't comment. I didn't like the photo. Instead, I opened our banking app and quietly lowered the limit on our joint credit card, just enough to trigger an alert on my phone for any larger purchase. That night I got the first notification, a restaurant charge, not in Chicago but in Milwaukee, 55 miles north. The next morning she posted a group shot on her story, 3 women at brunch, all smiling too hard. None of them were Megan. The jacket was in the background again, folded over the back of her chair, this time indoors, lit by low amber bulbs. I saved the image, then downloaded it before she could delete it. My phone kept a neat little folder for these things now. The near confrontation came Sunday night when she called, voice muffled like she was walking. "Hey," she said. "Bad signal here. Just letting you know I might be home late tomorrow, traffic back from Chicago." I could hear wind on the line, but also music, loud and live. Not the kind of place you could drive with one hand and talk on the phone. "Where are you right now?" I asked. "Near the pier," she said quickly. "It's loud, can I call you later?" "You just did," I said, keeping my voice level. A pause. "Right, well, love you." She hung up without waiting for my reply. That night I opened one of her friend's public posts from the trip. The caption was harmless, "Such a good weekend." But when I checked the photo's metadata, it was Chicago, not even close. It was taken in Milwaukee, the same night as the restaurant charge. I zoomed in on the shot, tracing the blurred figures in the background until I saw the cuff again, hanging off the back of a chair, almost out of frame. The fray looked worse this time, threads curling like smoke. I saved that one too. It didn't take much to find him. A location tag from one of her friend's posts led me to a small music venue's public gallery. 57 photos from the same night. I scrolled until the jacket appeared, not draped, not forgotten, but on the shoulders of the man from Mark's birthday dinner. Beard, same smirk, same way he stood with his hands hooked in his pockets like the night was his to arrange. I didn't click his profile. Not yet. Names could wait. What mattered was the pattern. Dinner. Milwaukee, now here, always with her within arm's reach, always with the jacket. The next weekend the pattern became flesh. Mark's barbecue was half social obligation, half neighborhood spectacle, kids running on the grass, adults orbiting the grill. She wore a sundress and a thin smile, already scanning the crowd before we reached the patio. I was talking to Mark's neighbor when I saw them. She was outside the fence line, just far enough from the noise. He was with her, a cigarette between his fingers, lit and ready before she could even ask. I walked over, slow, the kind of pace that gives people time to compose themselves. "Hey," I said, stepping into their line of sight. Her shoulders twitched just enough to notice. "We were just getting some air," he finished, offering me the faintest nod. No handshake, no introduction, just the nod of someone who thinks they've been allowed a privilege. Her laugh was too quick, too light. "Babe, this is," I cut her off. "We've met." His eyes flickered, registering the choice of words. She glanced at me, then away. Mark's voice called from the grill, breaking the moment. "You want a beer?" I held his gaze a second longer before turning toward the yard. "Yeah, I'll take one." By the time I looked back, they'd stepped apart, her hair tucked behind her ear like it had been windblown. Inside, she found me by the cooler. "You could have at least tried to be friendly," she said under her breath. "I was," I replied. The conversation ended there, but the rest of the day she kept her distance. That night while she showered, I acted on a different front. A friend of mine works at her office payroll side. I called in a favor. "Check her leave dates," I said. "Just the last 3 months." 2 days later he sent a text. "Doesn't match what she told you. At all." I didn't reply. Instead, I went back to the venue's gallery and found another shot from the night of her so-called girls' trip. The jacket was there again, the cuff more frayed now, threads almost hanging loose. He had one hand on her lower back, guiding her through a doorway. A near confrontation tempted me at dinner that night. She was telling a story about Megan's wild driving on the trip, and I almost said Megan was in Portugal. The words pressed against the back of my teeth, but I swallowed them. Letting her talk was more valuable. Every new detail was something she'd have to remember later. When she finished, I said only, "Sounds like you had fun." She smiled, unsure whether it was safe to agree. By the following week, I decided to stop meeting her on her ground. No more waiting at the door when she came home. No more planning evenings together. I started coming home later, telling her I had deadlines or after-hours meetings. Sometimes I really did. Sometimes I didn't. I let that absence seep into her. On Wednesday, she texted at 8:13 p.m., "You still at work?" And I waited until after 10 to reply, "Yes." The next night, I said nothing at all. Publicly, I made subtle adjustments. When mutual friends invited us both, I declined for myself, tell them she might still want to come. The message was clear without a single accusation. She had her world, I had mine. At a friend's dinner party, I kept to a small group in the kitchen, laughing with people she didn't know well. I didn't look over when she entered, though I could feel her scanning for me. By the time she approached, I was already excusing myself for a work call on the balcony. Privately, I was building a separate framework. Half our savings moved into an account she couldn't touch. Access to certain bill payments rerouted through my personal card. None of it abrupt, just enough that on paper, the picture of our finances was a little less shared. The jacket came up again in an almost throwaway way. Saturday morning, she was pacing the living room, phone in hand. "I can't find my jacket," she said. "The black leather one, borrowed it a couple weeks ago." I didn't look up from the paper. "Whose was it?" "A friend's." Too fast. "I already told you." I turned a page. "You might have." That near confrontation window stayed open for a moment, long enough to see if she'd fill the silence. She didn't. Instead, she exhaled through her nose and muttered, "I'll just text him them. I'll text them." Later that night, while she scrolled on the couch, I opened my laptop and reviewed the folder. Every photo, every instance of the jacket, every location tag. A neat visual timeline, the fray on the cuff growing with each appearance. The call came 2 days later, not from her, from the man's girlfriend. Her voice was calm, almost clinical. "We should talk," she said. "I think we've both been watching the same thing." I let a beat pass. "And what exactly have you been watching?" She told me enough. The cigarettes outside the barbecue, the trips that didn't match the stories, the jacket. She denoticed it too, but from the other side of the table. "We don't need to meet," I said finally. "But I'd appreciate whatever you've got," she agreed. Screenshots, dates, receipts. A mirror image of my own archive, except hers included text messages between them. Not overtly romantic, careful, but with just enough shorthand to prove familiarity that shouldn't exist. That night, my wife suggested we do something fun this weekend. Her voice was lighter, probing. "What did you have in mind?" I asked. "Dinner, maybe that little place you like on 7th. I nodded once. "We'll see." She smiled like that was a yes. It was. The files arrived on a Tuesday mid-afternoon, named like receipts, neat, bloodless. Airdropped first, then emailed, as if redundancy could keep the truth from evaporating. I opened the folder and saw the other angle of our life. Screenshots of messages between them, her bubbles blue, his gray. No declarations, just logistics dressed as errands. Same hotel as last time, meet at the north entrance. Bring the jacket, it's cold by the water. Dates lined up against mine like teeth. Milwaukee, the night of Mark's birthday. A Thursday she'd called late at the office. I didn't reply to the girlfriend right away. I tucked the files into a hidden directory on an external drive, then copied them again onto a second one. One for the house, one for the office. I labeled both with a forgettable name. When my wife came home, I was making pasta like a man with an uncomplicated day. She kissed my cheek and pretended the week hadn't slid sideways. "Smells good," she said, hovering near the stove, shoulder against mine like we were still in the habit of it. "Got a wedding Saturday," I said, stirring. "Your coworker, black tie." Her eyes flicked to the clock. "I forgot," she said, and then smiled too quickly. "It'll be fun." I set her bowl on the counter and watched her pick up her phone before the first bite. The screen lit her face while she scrolled. I knew the cadence now, the small pauses where you wait for a particular name to appear. I let the silence stretch, then broke it with a small lie that made a larger point. "By the way," I said, wiping my hands, "I'm going to start handling utilities through my card. Cash back promotion." She nodded like she was listening. "Sure," she said, attention still on her screen. Saturday came with rain, the kind that cleans sidewalks but not memory. We arrived at the hotel ballroom late enough to sit in the back row. She smoothed her dress and scanned the room twice without pretending otherwise. He was there. No surprise, not even a jolt, just the steady recognition of a shape you've already fitted into the map. Beard trimmed, smile practiced. The leather jacket hung over the back of his chair at a table near the dance floor, wrong for the occasion and exactly right for him. The torn cuff had grown to a soft fringe, like the edge of a burned page. Our table was 3 over, close enough for line of sight, close enough for a choice. She chose to orbit. During the vows, she held my hand like she was trying on a memory to see if it still fit. During the cocktail hour, she drifted toward the group he anchored, not directly to him, but near like a moth avoiding the flame because the room was watching. I stayed polite. I made easy conversation with people who knew both of us only in the blurry way weddings create. When someone asked how we'd been, I smiled and said, busy, different schedules. It traveled well because it was true and because it meant nothing. At the bar, she brushed my sleeve. Want anything? She asked, eyes already sliding past me. Club soda, I said. Lime. She returned with 2, handed me mine, kept the other. For later, she told me, lifting her glass toward the center of the room where the band was testing chords. She didn't look where I was looking. He was telling a story to his circle, one hand sketching shapes in the air. The jacket stayed on the chair, claiming space. The cuff dangled over the upholstery, the fray catching light like frost. Near confrontation came in the form of a slow dance. She took my hand when the band softened into something sentimental and led me onto the floor as if we were still on the same page. Her left hand on my shoulder, my right at her waist. Are you mad at me? She asked, voice low enough to hide in the music. No, I said, which was accurate. I'm watching. Her breath hitched against my collarbone. Watching what? How the night arranges itself, I said. She pulled back just enough to read my face, then turned her head so her hair hid hers from the room. You're being weird, she said with a short laugh that didn't reach her eyes. I'm being quiet, I said. There's a difference. When the song ended, she kissed my cheek, a public gesture meant for the witnesses, and slipped away. Not to him, not boldly. To the edge of his circle where she could laugh at the right beats and be looked at without being named. I worked another front while the toasts began. I stepped into the hallway and texted 2 mutual friends about a hypothetical, thinking of subletting the spare room if I travel more this fall. Know anyone clean and quiet? A small ripple placed delicately into the social pond. It said distance without saying problem. Back inside, the jacket moved rooms without moving. She found a pretext to pass behind his chair, fingers brushing the torn cuff like you would test fabric in a store. Casual. Intimate in the way only casual can be when it's rehearsed. My phone buzzed. Not the social ripple, not the girlfriend. A new message from her coworker in the bride's party, a candid of our table with me in profile. Such a handsome couple, she captioned and tagged us both. I opened the app long enough to watch the likes stack up. Her public image was intact, polished, curated, untouchable under the ballroom lights. She smiled the same smile in every frame. She belonged to the room. Privately, she checked her phone in the bathroom twice. I didn't need a screenshot to know when coordination is happening. The choreography of an almost accident is as precise as a dance. You just learn the steps by being stepped around. When the bouquet flew, her hands stayed at her sides. When the cake cut, she laughed at a joke before it landed. When the band hit the loudest chorus of the night, he finally put the jacket back on, ignoring the dress code as if rules belonged to other people. She watched him zip it to the collar and smiled with her lips closed, the way you smile at a private punchline. I left early without leaving the event. I found an empty conference room across the hall and backed up the girlfriend's files again, this time onto a cloud account with a name that wouldn't raise suspicion. I added timestamps from the wedding to a plain text log. 21:14 cuff touch. 21:42 dance floor orbit. 22:08 bathroom text window. When I returned, she was at our table, posture composed, phone face down like a promise. Where'd you go? She asked, idly tracing the stem of her glass. Work call, I said, sitting. Did you have fun? She shrugged, casual to the point of brittle. It's a wedding. I nodded and kept my eyes on the band. Congratulations to them, I said, as if the pronoun didn't apply to anyone else in the room. The night ended the way these nights always do, a final song, a sloppy chorus, chairs scraping tile. We walked to the valet in a line of strangers pretending to be a parade. He stood under the awning, jacket dark against the rain, speaking into someone's ear I didn't recognize. She didn't look at him as we passed. She didn't need to. In the car, the wipers marked time. She scrolled her phone with the screen tilted away from me, then locked it when we turned onto our street. "Good night," she said in the kitchen, touching my arm like punctuation. "Night," I said, already reaching for the light. In the dark bedroom, my phone lit the ceiling with a small square of blue. A bank alert, purchase approved, airline Miami, professional workshop registration. Another buzz followed from the girlfriend. "He's flying out Tuesday, Miami, client thing." The alert stacked until the screen dimmed. I set the phone face down, and in the silence that followed, I could still feel the ghost of threads between my fingers, cotton from a cuff I hadn't touched, unraveling on its own. I didn't wake her. I didn't say anything at all. I just pictured a lobby I'd never see, a jacket draped over a chair that wasn't ours, and two people arriving on different flights at the same checkpoint, thinking distance would make their story true. I didn't mention Miami. I let her pack for it the way she had for Chicago, Milwaukee, anywhere else she'd renamed in her head. She folded dresses into neat stacks on the bed, zipped pouches of makeup, scrolled through playlists. Her suitcase sat open like a mouth waiting to be fed. "Work trip?" I asked from the doorway, voice without weight. She didn't look up. "Workshop, industry thing, 3 days," I nodded once. "Sounds important." Her shoulders loosened, just enough for me to see she'd been braced for something sharper. I stepped away before she could read my face. The night before she left, I moved the last of the joint funds into my own account. The card she carried still worked for groceries and gas. Anything else would ask the question for me. Tuesday morning, I drove her to the airport. Rain on the windshield, radio low. She hummed without realizing it. When we pulled into the drop-off lane, she leaned over and kissed my cheek like we were still on the same page. "See you Friday," she said. "Safe flight," I replied, my hand already back on the wheel. I didn't watch her walk inside. At 2:14 p.m., my phone vibrated with the first failed transaction. Hotel front desk. Declined. A second alert followed, rideshare. Declined. By 2:20 she called. "Hey," she said, voice tight. "Something's wrong with the card." I kept my tone even. "I'll check." "Well, can you?" "I'm in the middle of something," I said. "I'll get back to you." I hung up before she could decide whether to argue. By evening, the first ripples had reached me. A mutual friend texted, "Is she okay? Just saw a weird post about her trip." Another sent a screenshot of her asking in a group chat if anyone could Venmo for an emergency. The man's girlfriend confirmed the scene. He'd arrived first, lobby drink in hand, waiting. She'd come in late, card rejected, whispering to the desk clerk. He stood apart, not stepping in. Whatever they were, it didn't include rescuing her. I didn't need to see it. It was enough to know the story would tell itself. By Thursday, she'd stopped posting entirely. Friday afternoon, she texted, "Flight delayed, home late." I replied, "Okay." When she came through the door, she carried herself like someone holding a box without handles. She put the suitcase down, met my eyes once, and said, "We need to talk." I was in the kitchen slicing bread. "I've got a call in 10, I said. "Maybe later," her mouth tightened. "It's important." I set the knife down, wiped my hands, and looked at her without stepping closer. "So's my call." She studied me, searching for something that wasn't there, then walked down the hall. The bedroom door closed with a softness that didn't match the way she dropped her suitcase. That weekend, I visited the landlord. The lease had been in both our names for years. Changing that was easier than she'd think. I signed the amendment, left the copy on his desk, and walked home in clean October air. Monday, I closed the joint account completely. The banker slid a single-page confirmation across the desk. My signature looked the same as it always had. 2 weeks later, I passed a small thrift shop on my way back from the bank. In the window, hanging between a denim jacket and a wool coat, was black leather. The torn cuff dangled like a flag surrendering in slow motion. I didn't go in. I didn't stop walking. At home, I checked my email. A message from the landlord sat near the top. "Per our update, the primary tenant information has been changed. Please inform the other party." I didn't forward it. She'd see it soon enough. That evening she came in late, phone in hand, eyebrows drawn together. She didn't mention the email. She didn't mention Miami. She didn't mention the jacket. We ate in near silence, forks on ceramic, the only conversation. When she finally looked up, there was something in her eyes, not guilt, not anger, just the early shape of understanding. I finished my plate, rinsed it, and set it in the rack. "I'll be in the office," I said. She nodded, more to herself than to me. I closed the door behind me, sat at the desk, and listened to the house breathe without filling the air. The files were still on the drive, the dates and times still in the log. Nothing had been erased. Nothing would be explained. Some endings don't need noise. They just need